Sorry, folks, you're not getting through here tonight. Bad car accident up there, so you're gonna have to turn around and go back. Huh? Anything I can help with? What are you, a doctor or something? Or something? Well, the sarcasm isn't really appreciated, but the help sure is. Yeah, come give us a hand. Okay, so what do we have? Well, I've got two casualties. One's in desperate need for CPR. Can you just get down and deal with them while I manage the traffic? Uh, I actually don't know how to do that. Right, okay, well, I can probably do that. If you can manage the traffic flow then and stopping cars from coming down here, then yeah, that's fine. I'll just do that instead. Don't know how to do that either. Sorry, I thought you said you could help. Yeah, well, I meant more in the sense of being able to sort of give you advice about demons or hauntings, that sort of thing. How could that possibly help us now in this situation? All right, I'll be honest with you, okay? It was an empty gesture. I didn't expect you to say yes. I didn't expect you to accept my help. I just offered it to be nice, but here we are. If anything, it's your fault, really. Oh, it's my fault. It's my fault for saying yes to a stranger offering me help in a situation I actually do need help in. You're unbelievable. Oh, and driver's now dead. Thanks. Well, if it helps, my wife would be able to contact him. And how would that help us exactly? You really are useless. You know that? Only when it comes to living. But yeah, I agree with you. In this situation, I really am no help at all. Sorry. So, Annabelle Comes Home is a movie released in 2019, starring Patrick Wilson, Vera Farmiga, McKenna Grace, and Madison Eisman, and directed by Gary Doberman. So, this movie centres around Judy, who is the Warrens' daughter. After the Warrens go away for one night, she's left with the babysitter Mary Ellen, and whilst everything does seem normal, they are joined by Mary Ellen's friend, who has a sort of ulterior motive to going to that house after knowing or who the Warrens are and what they do. She then ends up going into their museum, trying to make contact with her dad, who's passed away, and unfortunately ends up letting Annabelle out of the cage or the glass case that she's stored in. And as a result, all havoc breaks loose. Now, the movie does begin with the beginning scene of the first Conjuring movie, where the Warrens are visiting the household that does have Annabelle. And it leaves with them taking Annabelle back to their place. And we start to see that actually, obviously, Annabelle is more powerful than perhaps we've realised in the past. She is able to summon sort of more spirits to try and prevent her from being taken into captivity by the Warrens, to the point where Ed almost dies. And it's there that we learn that actually Annabelle, the demon controlling Annabelle, or sort of latched onto Annabelle, is a beacon for other spirits. Now, this comes into play later on because in the museum of the Warrens, it's not just Annabelle that's in there. It's essentially housing every single evil spirit they've ever dealt with, or housing an item connected to them. And as a result, through those items, Annabelle can then obviously bring those along with with her to just cause absolute havoc across the household. And it's almost a culmination of every single Conjuring movie and spin-off coming together to just give you a almost a showcase of everything they've dealt with. And I have to say, this Annabelle movie is for me the scariest out of the lot. And I think I have to include the Conjuring movies into this because this is just, it's so unsettling in almost every single scene. You get a nice, gentle easing in where you have the introduction to Judy, and you start to sense or start to see that Judy does have some of her mother's gifts. And then you get Mary Ellen, quite a sweet babysitter. She has her own life. She, has a boy that likes her, and everything seems normal. And then you have Daniela, who's the troubled friend of Mary Ellen, whose dad passed away in a car crash of a car that she was driving. So she blames herself and is desperate to get in contact to essentially get forgiveness from her dad. And that's what builds up into this whole premise, really. And the one thing that really does follow through the Annabelle series is you can clearly see the steps of manipulation that the demon attached to Annabelle does take. So immediately when you see that Daniela has lost her dad, she has a picture of her dad and is calling out to him, you know full well that that's what's going to be used to try and get in her head and convince her to let Annabelle free. And that is what happens. But from that point, I mean, just some of the show set pieces in this movie are just absolutely incredible and so unsettling to the point where it doesn't matter if you're watching it in the day or night, you will scream. And I do like how this inserts itself into the main Conjuring universe. From based on like the small hints you have, it seems to be set sometime between 1 and 2, or the Conjuring 1 and 2, but just after the Amityville case that they dealt with. So the question marks are currently around the Warrens, and that does make its way into this movie, where a lot of the people, or a lot of the community, sort of question whether or not Ed and Lorraine are in fact genuine. And it does have the sort of impact on Judy as well, where she is almost ostracized away from all the other kids. Some of them are scared because of her parents. Some of them think she's a bit of a weirdo, a bit of a freak, their words. And yeah, essentially she's on her own and only really has the babysitter. But what I love about this movie is you're introduced into the museum in detail for really the first time. You don't really get to see much of what's in there other than the new things brought into it during the Conjuring movies. But when Daniela goes in there for the first time, you see everything that there is. And everything that she sees in detail comes into play later on. So, for example, a board game that they use or that you see just almost casually as the camera pans over it, that's brought in later on. The bridal or the wedding dress comes into it as well, where you see that actually that's used or possessed by a demon. And yeah, a lot of other things all come into it altogether. The drawn out shots are back as well, so the suspense just builds and builds and builds, and just you almost, again, I think I've said before, sometimes you feel relieved when the scare does come, but in this, there is no relief because as soon as the scare comes, the tension is then built again almost straight away. So it doesn't ever let you relax. Once it takes you into sort of seeing that Annabelle's free and things are going on, there is no letting up until the film's over. So yeah, it is a strong one. But everyone does their job so well in this film, and it's just, I mean, it does a great job of separating out the characters as well. So they're not all grouped together. So a lot of other characters are brought into it as well. So they are dealing with other threats that are brought in. So you get to see a lot of what the Warrens have had to deal with in the past. And it just adds so much more depth to that wider Conjuring universe. And it's, yeah, an absolute superb entry. Now, there are downsides to this movie. There always normally are downsides to these types of films. But I think mainly, really, it's just the introduction of a couple of characters that are just unnecessary. In particular, the love interest of Mary Ellen, whilst him being introduced does give you that sense of normality in her life. So there's nothing really inherently strange about her going into this movie. He does hang around and get brought back in throughout, and it does seem almost a bit of a waste, really. Sort of almost detracts from what's going on inside the house. And that's the other key thing as well, actually, is the setting of this place is the Warrens' home address. So whilst you sort of think that everything is, you are safe around them, their own sort of sanctuary, their own sort of safe place is now compromised because Annabelle is free and causing havoc there. So that also unsettles you too. The slow build up in this movie is absolutely superb because it just fuels the excellent pacing that it has throughout. So whilst you're introduced slowly to strange things going on, it does continue to accelerate more and more and more until then all of a sudden you see the usual tropes of what you do in any of the previous Conjuring movies or Annabelle movies as well. But this one just has something a little bit more, and I think it is just a case of you don't know what's coming next, because it's not just one thing that you're focused on several others, so you have no idea what it is that you're going to be faced with. And I think the by far the best effect in this movie is the scene with the coins over the eyes. So Mary Ellen sees that there's a case where previously they dealt with, or the warrants have investigated a spirit or demon, and it's been associated with dead bodies with coins over their eyes to pay the toll to go over to the afterlife. And she's walking around the kitchen in darkness just with a torch, and there's coins dropping around her. And then next minute she turns around and she sees two coins floating up as if they're eyes. And as she slowly lifts the torch up, there's nothing there. The coins just drop, hit the floor, and you know that something's there, but you can't see it. And that, in a nutshell, just explains the amazing scares in this film. But overall, I had an amazing time with this movie, and it really is, I think, the best Annabelle movie out there, and is a strong contender for one of the best movies in the Conjuring universe. Easily 4 stars. So that was my review of Annabelle Comes Home, the final movie in the Annabelle series and another entry in the Conjuring universe. Have you guys seen it? What did you guys think about it? Whatever you thought, please pop it in the comment section below. As always, thank you very much for watching this video. I will be back with another one shortly, but until then, you guys take it easy, and I'll catch you on the next one.